Hello everyone, welcome to GMains 2010 Physics Solutions. A rectangular loop has a sliding connector PQ of length L and resistance R ohm, and it is moving with a speed V as shown in figure. The setup is placed in a uniform magnetic field going into the plane of the paper. The three currents I1, I2 and I as represented in the circuit diagram are. The induced EMF across a moving conductor in a magnetic field is given by the formula E equal to BLV. This is known as motional EMF, where B is the magnitude of magnetic field induction, L is length of the conductor, and V is the speed of the conductor. So, effectively, PQ acts as a battery of EMF E and internal resistance capital R. Now we can replace the circuit and draw it again as shown in the second diagram. Now we can calculate the current flowing through the battery as I equal to E by R, where R is the effective resistance. As you can see from the second circuit, the two outer resistors are connected in parallel and they are in effect series with the internal resistance of the battery. So the total resistance is 3R by 2. So the current becomes 2E by 3R, that is 2 times BLV by 3R. Now that is the total current flowing through the battery. Coming to the other two currents I1 and I2, as the two resistors are same and they are connected in parallel, the current will divide in the inverse ratio of resistances. Here the two resistors are same, so the two currents are same and they are equal to half of the original current. So the value is BLV by 3R. Let C be the capacitance of a capacitor discharging through a resistor R. Suppose T1 is the time taken for the energy stored in the capacitor to reduce to half of its initial value, and T2 is the time taken for the charge to reduce to 1/4 of its initial value. Then the ratio T1 by T2 will be. The instantaneous charge on a discharging capacitor is given by the formula Q equal to capital Q times e power minus T by RC, where capital Q is the maximum charge stored in the capacitor. Now as the charge has to become 1/4 of the initial value, we can write Q by 4 equal to Q times e power minus T2 by RC. From there we can simplify the expression to get T2 equal to 2RC log 2, that is log is to base E. Then the instantaneous energy on a discharging capacitor is given by the formula U equal to capital U e power minus 2t by RC, where capital U is the initial energy stored in the capacitor. Now since the energy has to become half of the initial value, we can write U by 2 equal to U into e power minus 2t1 by RC, that is half equal to e power minus 2t1 by RC. Upon simplification, we get T1 equal to RC by 2 log 2. Then take the ratio T1 by T2 comes out to be 1 by 4. Statement 1. Two particles moving in same direction do not lose all their energy in a completely inelastic collision. Statement 2. Principle of conservation of momentum holds true for all kinds of collisions. Coming to statement 1, consider two particles of masses m1 and m2 moving with velocities v1 and v2 before collision. So the initial kinetic energy of the system can be written as half m1 v1 square plus a half m2 v2 square, and the final kinetic energy of the system can be written as half m1 plus m2 of v square. The two particles after collision will travel with the common velocity because it is a perfectly inelastic collision. Applying conservation of linear momentum, m1 v1 plus m2 v2 equal to m1 plus m2 of v. From there we get common velocity equal to m1 v1 plus m2 v2 by m1 plus m2. Now coming to loss of kinetic energy delta K, we can clearly see it is non-zero value. So statement 1 is correct. Coming to statement 2, in order to prove statement 1, we have used statement 2, that is conservation of linear momentum, valid in the case of inelastic collision. Obviously it is valid in the case of elastic collision also. So the correct option is 1. Statement 1. When UV light is incident on a photocell, its stopping potential is V0 and maximum kinetic energy is Kmax. When UV light is replaced with X-rays, both V0 and Kmax increase. Statement 2. Photoelectrons are emitted with speeds ranging from 0 to maximum due to the range of frequencies present in the incident light. Coming to statement 1, X-rays have more frequency than ultraviolet rays. So, when the frequency of incident radiation increases, obviously the kinetic energy of emitted electrons will increase. Since stopping potential is directly related to kinetic energy, so the stopping potential also increases. So, statement 1 is correct. Coming to statement 2, as photoelectrons are emitted from the metal surface, they will have speeds ranging from 0 to maximum value. That is because while coming out of the metal surface, the electrons collide with the other electrons or ion cores present in the metal surface, losing some energy in each collision. So the electrons will come out of the metal surface with the different velocities or kinetic energies ranging from 0 to maximum value. A ball is made up of a material of density rho where rho oil less than rho water. The oil and water are immiscible. If the above ball is in equilibrium in a mixture of this oil and water, which of the following pictures represent the equilibrium position? Let us try to understand the given conditions one by one. The density of oil is less than the density of water, so the oil will float over water. The density of ball is greater than that of oil, so it will sink in oil, and the density of ball is less than that of water, so it will float in water. So oil should be floating on water and the ball should be in between oil and water. So that is the second option. A particle is moving with a velocity v equal to k times y I cap plus x j cap, where k is a constant. The general equation for its path is the velocity of the particle as given v bar equal to k times y I cap plus x j cap. Let us write it as two components, k times y into I cap and k times x into j cap. So from there, the x component of velocity vx equal to ky, that is dx by dt equal to ky. The y component of velocity equal to kx, that is dy by dt equal to kx. Now let us take dy by dx, multiply and divide this equation with dt, we get dy by dt and dt by dx. Dy by dt we know it is kx and dx by dt is ky. So from there we get dy by dx equal to x by y. Cross multiply, we get y dy equal to x dx. Apply integration on both sides, we get integral y dy equal to integral x dx. That is y square by 2 equal to x square by 2 plus constant. From there we get y square equal to x square plus constant. Two long parallel wires are at a distance 2d apart. They carry steady equal currents flowing out of plane of the paper as shown. The variation of magnetic field along the line x dash is given by. The magnetic field created by a straight current carrying conductor is given by B equal to mu naught by 2 pi I by r. From there we can see B is inversely proportional to r, the distance. When two variables are inversely related to each other, the graph is going to be rectangular hyperbola. The graph should be a combination of two rectangular hyperbolas because of the two conductors carrying current in the same direction. In the circuit shown below, the key K is closed at t equal to 0. The current through the battery is. As we see in the circuit, there is an inductor of inductance L, two resistors R1 and R2. R1 is in series with L while R2 is connected in parallel to the series combination of L and R1. When the key is closed at t equal to 0, the inductor acts as open circuit because inductor opposes sudden changes in current. So the current will be I equal to V by R, that is I equal to V by R2, as the branch containing inductor will act as open circuit. Now at t equal to infinity, the inductor acts as short circuit because it has reached steady state. Now it offers zero resistance. So the current will be I equal to V by R. Now as inductor is short circuited, we can see R1 and R2 are connected in parallel to each other. So the effective resistance is R1 R2 by R1 plus R2. So I equal to V times R1 plus R2 by R1 R2. The figure shows position time graph of one-dimensional motion of a body of mass 0.4 kg. The magnitude of each impulse is. Mass of the body is 0.4 kg. The slope of position time graph gives us velocity. Now let us see velocities in two time intervals. Between 0 to 2, it is 1 meter per second. Between 2 to 4, it is minus 1 meter per second. So impulse is taken as change in momentum. So that is mv minus mu. That is m of v minus of minus u, because the direction is reversed. So it comes out to be 0.8 Newton second. Question numbers 10 and 11 are based on the following paragraph. A nucleus of mass m plus delta m is at rest and decays into two daughter nuclei of equal mass m by 2 each. Speed of light is c. Now let us see the 10th question. The binding energy per nucleon for the parent nucleus is E1 and that of the daughter nucleus is E2. Then binding energy per nucleon of parent nucleus is E1. So the total binding energy will be mass number into binding energy per nucleon, that comes out to be m plus delta m of E1, that is me1 plus delta m E1. The binding energy per nucleon of daughter nucleus is E2. So the total binding energy of the daughter nuclei will be m by 2 E2 plus m by 2 E2, that is me2. As the energy on both sides is equal, we can write me1 plus delta m E1 equal to me2. From there we get E2 greater than E1. The speed of daughter nucleus is. The mass defect taking place in the reaction is m plus delta m minus m, that comes out to be delta m. Then the energy released is E equal to delta m into c square according to Einstein's mass energy relation. Now this energy released will be taken up by the daughter nucleus as its kinetic energy. Applying conservation of linear momentum, we get P initial equal to P final. Since initially the parent nucleus is at rest, its initial momentum is 0. Finally it divides into two parts. Let us say velocity of first part is v1 and that of the second part is v2. That is 0 equal to m by 2 v1 plus m by 2 v2. Since both masses are same, we get v1 equal to v2. Now applying conservation of kinetic energy, E equal to half of m by 2 v1 square plus half of m by 2 v2 square. As v1 equal to v2, we get E equal to half mv square. That is delta m into c square equal to half mv square, from which we have v equal to c times root of 2 delta m by capital M. A radioactive nucleus, initial mass number A and atomic number Z, emits 3 alpha particles and 2 positrons. The ratio of number of nucleons to that of protons in the final nucleus will be. After an alpha emission, the atomic number reduces by 2 units and mass number reduces by 4 units, as alpha particle is nothing but a helium nucleus containing 2 protons and 2 neutrons. So in the form of an equation, we can write xza gives rise to alpha particle, y z minus 2 a minus 4. So after emitting 3 alpha particles, the atomic number reduces by 6 units and mass number reduces by 12 units. After a positron emission, the Z reduces by 1 and A remains same. Positron is nothing but anti-electron having opposite charge and electromagnetic characteristics, but mass will be same. So in the form of an equation, we can write xza gives rise to positron y z minus 1 a. So after emitting 2 positrons, the atomic number reduces by 2 units, mass number remains same. Combining the alpha emission and positron emission, we have neutrons to protons is A minus Z minus 4 by Z minus 8. A thin semicircular ring of radius r has a positive charge q distributed uniformly over it. The net electric field E at the center O is. So it is a problem involving linear charge density as charge is spread throughout the circumference of the semicircle. Let us calculate electric field due to a small charge dq and apply integration for finding the total electric field intensity. The electric field due to dq at the center is dE, as electric field is directed away from positive charge. So we can have dE directed away from O as shown in the figure. Since electric field is a vector quantity, it can be resolved into two rectangular components, dE cos theta and dE sin theta. As you can see, dE cos theta is directed towards left and dE sin theta is directed downward. Corresponding to every dl we take on the right hand side, there will be a dl on the left hand side. So that is creating the electric field. Again, if you take the components, we see all dE cos theta components will cancel each other and all dE sin theta components will be acting downwards, that is along negative j cap. So dE sin theta equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught dq by r square into sin theta. dq can be written as lambda dl, where lambda is linear charge density. Dl can be written as r d theta, where r is radius of the semicircle. Effectively, it is lambda by 4 pi epsilon naught r sin theta d theta. To find the total electric field, we integrate between the limits of 0 to 180. Integral sin theta is minus cos theta. After substituting the limits, it comes out to be minus q by 2 pi square epsilon naught r square j cap. The combination of gates as shown in figure gives. See the diagram for some time. It is two NAND gates connected to another NAND gate. The first two NAND gates are single input NAND gates. Single input NAND gate acts as NOT gate. So the output of first NOT gate is A bar and that of second NOT gate is B bar. Now these two are fed to another NAND gate. So X equal to A bar B bar whole bar, that is NAND operation. Applying De Morgan's theorem, it becomes A bar bar plus B bar bar. So that is effectively A plus B, which is nothing but OR gate. A diatomic ideal gas is used in a car engine as working substance. During the adiabatic expansion part of the cycle, volume of the gas increases from V to 32 V. The efficiency of the engine is. Efficiency of an engine is given by the formula eta equal to 1 minus T2 by T1. So we need to find the temperatures T2 and T1. Since it is an ideal gas undergoing adiabatic expansion, the relation between absolute temperature and volume is given by Tv power gamma minus 1 equal to constant. Gamma is 1.4 as the given gas is the diatomic gas. Now applying the formula for two cases, T1 V1 power gamma minus 1 equal to T2 V2 power gamma minus 1. From there we get T2 by T1 equal to 1 by 32 whole power gamma minus 1. That comes out to be 1 by 4. So the efficiency of the engine equal to 1 minus T2 by T1, that is 1 minus 1 by 4. That comes out to be 3 by 4 or 0.75. In percentage, it is 75%. If a source of power 4 kilowatt produces 10 power 20 photons per second, the radiation belongs to a part of spectrum called. Power of the source is given by energy by time, that is E by T. Since there are n number of photons here, it is Ne by T, that is NhC by lambda into T, where Hc by lambda is the formula for energy in terms of wavelength. Now 4 into 10 power 3, that is power 4 kilowatt equal to 10 power 20 into 6.63 into 10 power minus 34 into 3 into 10 power 8 by lambda into time 1 second. From there lambda comes out to be 5 nanometer, which belongs to X-rays. The respective number of significant figures for the numbers 23.023, 0.0003 and 2.1 into 10 power minus 3 are. There are certain rules to be by-hearted by students for finding the number of significant figures in a given number. So I suggest the students to go through those rules first and then solve the problem. Coming to the problem now, it is 23.023. The number of significant figures is 5. That is according to the rule, all non-zero digits are significant and any zeros existing between non-zero digits are also taken to be significant irrespective of position of decimal point. Coming to the second number, it is 0.0003. The number of significant figures is 1, following the rule that if the given number is less than 1 and there are zeros between decimal point and first non-zero digit, they have to be considered to be non-significant. So only digit 3 is the significant figure here, so the answer is 1. Coming to the last number, it is 2.1 into 10 power minus 3. So according to the rule used in first number, it is the number of significant figures is 2. In a series LCR circuit, R equal to 200 ohm and the voltage and the frequency of the main supply is 220 and 50 Hz respectively. On taking out the capacitance from the circuit, the current lags the voltage by 30. On taking out the inductor from the circuit, the current leads the voltage by 30. The power dissipated in the circuit is. Initially, it is an LCR series circuit. Now when the capacitor is removed, only inductor and resistor will remain in the circuit. Tan phi we can write as R by XL. From there 1 by root 3 equal to 200 by XL, we get XL equal to 200 root 3 ohm. Now when the inductor is removed, only capacitor and resistor will remain in the circuit. Again tan phi equal to R by XC. Here phi is the phase angle difference between current wave and voltage wave. So we get 1 by root 3 equal to 200 by XC. From there XC equal to 200 root 3 ohm. As we can see, the inductive reactance and capacitive reactance both are equal here. That happens only under resonance conditions. So the circuit is effectively under resonance. Under resonance conditions, an LCR series network behaves as only resistive network. So the power dissipated is same as that of a pure resistive network, that is P equal to V square by R. That comes out to be 242 watt. Let there be a spherically symmetric charge distribution with a charge density varying as rho r equal to rho naught of 5 by 4 minus r by r up to r equal to r, then rho r equal to 0 for r greater than r, where small r is the distance from the origin and capital R is the radius of the spherical symmetric charge distribution. The electric field at a distance small r, which is less than capital R, from the origin is given by volume charge density is given by rho r equal to rho naught of 5 by 4 minus small r by capital R. Now from here we have to find the charge included in the Gaussian surface first. Q in equal to integral 0 to r dq. dq is written as rho dV, as the given charge distribution is volume charge distribution. We have to take infinitesimally small amount of volume dV. You can see the diagram. That is 0 to r rho naught of 5 by 4 minus r by r. Infinitesimally small volume dV can be written as 4 pi r square dr, where dr is the thickness. From there we get upon simplification the charge q in equal to pi rho naught r cube of 5 by 3 minus r by r. I suggest the students to go through the integration process carefully. Now apply Gauss theorem. Integral b bar dot ds bar equal to 1 by epsilon naught q in. From there b times integral ds is nothing but total surface area, that is 4 pi r square of the Gaussian surface, equal to 1 by epsilon naught, the charge which we found in the previous step, that is pi rho naught r cube of 5 by 3 minus small r by capital R. From there we get B equal to rho naught r by 4 epsilon naught 5 by 3 minus r by r. The potential energy function for the force between two atoms in a diatomic molecule is approximately given by U equal to A by x power 12 minus B by x power 6, where A and B are constants and x is the distance between the atoms. If the dissociation energy of the molecule is D equal to U x at infinity minus U x at equilibrium, then D is given by. The potential energy of the molecule as it is given in the question, U equal to A by x power 12 minus B by x power 6. The potential energy at x equal to infinity by substituting x equal to infinity is 0. Then let us find the force from the potential energy. For a conservative field, the force and potential energy are related by F equal to minus du by dx. That is minus d by dx of A by x power 12 minus B by x power 6. From there we get F equal to 12A by x power 13 minus 6B by x power 7. At equilibrium, the resultant force is 0. So 0 equal to 12A by x power 13 minus 6B by x power 7, corresponding to which we get x power 6 equal to 2A by B. Now potential energy at equilibrium position we obtain by substituting the value of x power 6 equal to 2A by B. That comes out to be minus B square by 4A. So put these two values in dissociation energy formula, we get capital D equal to B square by 4A. Two identical charged spheres are suspended by strings of equal length. The string makes an angle 30 degrees with each other. When suspended in a liquid of density 0.8 gram per cc, the angle remains the same. If the density of material of the sphere is 1.6 gram per cc, the dielectric constant of the liquid is. As you can see from the diagram, when the charged spheres are in air, tan theta equal to F by mg under equilibrium condition. As they are put into liquid, tan theta equal to F liquid by mg minus Fb, where Fb is buoyancy force that arises whenever an object is placed in a fluid. Now that is simplified as mg of 1 minus rho liquid by rho solid. In the numerator it is F by K, where K is the dielectric constant of the medium. So effectively it is F by mg of 1 by K times 1 minus rho liquid by rho solid. Since the angle remains same, tan theta in both cases is same, you can equate RHS. We can write F by mg equal to F by mg times 1 minus rho liquid by rho solid. Upon simplification, we get K equal to 2. Two conductors have same resistance at 0 degree centigrade, but their temperature coefficients of resistance are alpha 1 and alpha 2. The respective temperature coefficients of their series and parallel combinations are nearly. Resistance of a conductor is given by RT equal to R naught of 1 plus alpha T, where RT is the resistance at T degree centigrade, R naught is resistance at 0 degree centigrade, and alpha is the temperature coefficient of resistance. Now for the first conductor, we can write RT1 equal to R naught of 1 plus alpha 1 T. For the second conductor, it is RT2 equal to R naught of 1 plus alpha 2T. For series combination of resistors R equal to R1 plus R2, combining the above two equations, we get 2R0 plus R0 T of alpha 1 plus alpha 2. So alpha for series combination is equal to alpha 1 plus alpha 2 by 2. Similarly, for parallel combination, we can write 1 by R equal to 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2. That is 1 by R naught of 1 plus alpha T equal to 1 by R naught of 1 alpha 1 T plus 1 by R naught of 1 plus alpha 2 T. Take the denominator into the numerator and apply binomial theorem. We get alpha equal to alpha 1 plus alpha 2 by 2. A point P moves in a counterclockwise direction on a circular path as shown in figure. The momentum of P is such that it sweeps out a length s equal to t cube plus 5, where s is in meter and t is in seconds. The radius of the path is 20 meter. The acceleration of P when t equal to 2 seconds is. Radius of the circular path r is 20 meter. Displacement of the particle is given by t cube plus 5. Let us find the velocity of the particle by differentiating the displacement equation. V equal to ds by dt, that is d by dt of t cube plus 5, that comes out to be 3t square. Now velocity of the particle at t equal to 2 seconds will be 12 meter per second. Coming to centripetal acceleration of the particle, AC equal to v square by r, that comes out to be 7.2 meter per second square, while tangential acceleration of the particle at equal to dv by dt. So differentiating the velocity 3t square, we get tangential acceleration to be 60, that is at t equal to 2 seconds, it comes out to be 12 meter per second square. The net acceleration a equal to root of ac square plus at square, as these two accelerations are perpendicular to each other. The final answer is 14 meter per second square. Two fixed frictionless inclined planes making angles 30 degrees and 60 degrees with the vertical are as shown in figure. Two blocks A and B are placed on the planes. What is the relative vertical acceleration of A with respect to B? The acceleration of an object on an inclined plane is given by A equal to g sin theta. Now the vertical component of the acceleration Ay is A sin theta, that is g sin theta of sin theta. See the diagram. It is g sin square theta. Now relative acceleration in vertical direction is AyAb equal to Aya minus Ayb, that is g sin square theta A minus g sin square theta B, that comes out to be g times sin square theta A minus sin square theta B. Upon substituting the values theta and theta B, that is 60 degrees and 30 degrees respectively, we get the answer to be 4.9 meter per second square. For a particle in uniform circular motion, the acceleration A at a point P r comma theta on the circle of radius r is, here theta is measured from positive x-axis. Since the particle is in uniform circular motion, it will have only centripetal acceleration AC. AC is directed towards the center along the radius given by the formula v square by r. Resolving into two rectangular components, I can write a bar equal to ax minus I cap plus ay minus j cap. Ax is v square by r cos theta, ay is v square by r sin theta. So effectively a bar equal to v square by r cos theta minus I cap and v square by r sin theta minus j cap. Next three questions are based on the following paragraph. An initially parallel cylindrical beam travels in a medium of refractive index given by mu I equal to mu naught plus mu 2 I, where mu naught and mu 2 are positive constants and I is the intensity of light beam. The intensity of the beam is decreasing with increasing radius. Now let us see the questions one by one. Question number 26. As the beam enters the medium, it will. The refractive index of the medium, as we can see, is mu I equal to mu naught plus mu 2 I, given that the intensity of beam is decreasing with increasing radius. So the refractive index is maximum at the axis of the beam. As the light ray travels towards the normal in denser medium, here it will come towards the axis. So the light beam will converge as it enters the medium. The initial shape of the wavefront of the beam is, as we know, before entering the medium, the beam is a parallel cylindrical in shape. So for a parallel beam of light, the wavefronts also are parallel to each other and they are planar in shape. So the correct option is fourth. The speed of light in the medium is, as we can see, the refractive index of the medium mu I equal to mu naught plus mu 2 I. Again, given the intensity reduces with increasing radius, that is, intensity is maximum at the axis, so is the refractive index. So the refractive index of the medium mu equal to C by V, so that is C by mu naught plus mu 2 I. As the refractive index is maximum at the axis, the speed of light is minimum at the axis. A small particle of mass m is projected at an angle theta with x-axis at a velocity u in xy plane as shown. At a time t less than v0 sin theta by g, the angular momentum of the particle is. Given t less than v0 sin theta by g, the v0 sin theta by g is nothing but time of ascent. So we are asked to calculate the angular momentum of the particle before it reaches the maximum height. Now the velocity of the particle v bar equal to vxi plus vyj, that is u cos theta I plus u sin theta minus gtj. The displacement of the particle r bar is xi plus yj, where x is displacement in horizontal direction and y is displacement in vertical direction. That comes out to be u cos theta t into I, u sin theta t minus half gt square j. Coming to the angular momentum of the particle, L bar equal to R bar cross P bar, that is R bar cross mv bar. Taking m out of the brackets, it is m times R bar cross v bar. Now it is cross product of displacement vector and velocity vector. You carry out the product clearly and cautiously, we get the answer L bar equal to minus half mg ut square cos theta k cap. The equation of a wave on a string of linear density 0.04 kg per meter is given by y equal to 0.02 sine 2 pi of t by 0.04 minus x by 0.5. The tension in the string is. Let us see the equation of the wave. Y equal to 0.02 sine 2 pi times t by 0.04 minus x by 0.5. From the equation we get amplitude A equal to 0.02 meter, angular frequency omega equal to 50 pi radian per second, and propagation constant k equal to 4 pi meter inverse. Speed of the transverse wave on a string is given by v equal to omega by k, that is 12.5 meter per second. Now the speed of the transverse wave on the string is also given by v equal to root t by mu, that is root t by mu equal to 12.5, from which we get a tension equal to 6.25 Newton.